Mark, a week into the new season, transfer window's closed. How are City set?
I think we're set pretty well. It's been a long summer. It's been a busy summer. I'm delighted that the transfer window is now formally closed, although there still is the option to loan for the next couple of weeks. I think we were all just glad to get the first game under the season under our belts. There was a big anticipation, a big build-up to the Forest game, a big crowd here at Ashton Gate. Great to get off the mark early. And I think probably at the end of the day, a point was probably a fair result, but we're pleased to be up and running. With regards to the transfer window, as I've just said, it has been a long window. We've done a lot of deals. I think 54 contracts in total we've papered this window. 13 of those are first-year scholars, but the remainder are pros, and that's been players coming in, players going out, renegotiations. It's been a long, tough window internally, but I think we're in pretty good shape.
You happy with the players you've recruited?
Yeah, I think so. We set out with a plan at the back end of May. I sat down with Lee, the board, and Steve Lansdowne, and we talked through, if you like, a debrief of the season, what had went well, what hadn't gone well, and what we'd learnt from the season. We knew going into the window there was a strong possibility that we're going to lose a number of our top-rated players, and we had to prepare for that and put plans in place for that, and we did. And I think we were right to presume the ones that we were going to lose, but I think we've recruited solidly, and as I said, I think as a squad we've got depth and we're in pretty good shape.
You've selected proven Championship players. Is that a change of focus in terms of your recruitment?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you look at our squad, we've got a number of young developmental players that are now emerging. The likes of Brownhill and O'Dowd have been with us a while, and Eliasson, and have gone through that development stage, and it's now time for them to step up. So I think we made the decision that, look, if the opportunity came to take a developmental player, and I think we've probably still done that in Adalukin, because he's still a youngster, he's inexperienced at this level, and he'll come into that 23-stroke first team bracket. But the others, in the likes of Hunt, Watkins, are solid first team players. Webster brings Championship experience at the back, a different type of player to Flint, but all have proven Championship experience. So again, I think the group, the collective is strong. There's depth in most of the positions now, which we probably haven't had for a number of years, and I'd like to think we're in a fairly good place.
You've obviously talked about players who've gone, and three big names in Bobby Reid, Aidan Flint and Joe Bryan.
It's always difficult. It's always difficult because there's a lot of emotion flying around, particularly when you're talking about a boy that's come through the academy. I think, firstly, I have to commend Bobby for the way he conducted himself through the whole period. The three players that are left in Flint, Bryan and Reid, let's be really clear, we offered all contracts on the way through. We tried to persuade all three to stay at the football club. But you get to a point in players' careers where they for whatever reason, want to move on, and they think it's time for a change. And when the player categorically says, I want to move, it really is then, I have to do my business. And we got to that point with Bobby. We'd made him contract offers. We wanted him to stay, but he felt it was the natural time to move. He made it very clear that should a Premier League opportunity arise, he'd want to take it, or he'd at least want to look at it. We had a number of inquiries for him over the summer, and my job is to maximise that deal regardless of the club. I have to protect Bristol City Football Club. I knew there'd be frustration when the name of the club he was moving to was announced, but at the end of the day that was the best deal that was on the table for this football club, and hence we took it. I presented it to the board, presented it to Steve, we took the deal, we wish him the best and we move on.
Aidan Flint, another fans hero, but you sold him to a Championship rival club.
Aidan was one that we had inquiries about in January, and I think one of our big challenges last January was to hold the players, let alone recruit players. It was just to keep what we'd got. And Aidan was one of those. He's an experienced Championship player now. He's proven. And Middlesbrough are a club that are still on parachute payments, so they've got good financial power. And again, he'd made it clear he wanted to move. I think probably a little bit like Bobby. He would have possibly like to have moved to the Premier League. Middlesbrough came in. He made it clear he wanted to go, and he wanted to go there. So at that point, I have to do my job again and get the best deal for the club. And again, we were happy with what we got.
Joe Bryan, 16 years with Bristol City. Another wrench, I presume, to let him go. Did you try hard enough to keep him?
Yeah, I think we did. We've been talking to Joe about new contracts for the last 18 months. And we've made a series of offers. And I think, I sat down with Joe again as early as last week. I sat him in my office and said, look, what can we do to make you stay? Can we offer you a new contract? Can we give you the security of a new contract? And he made it very clear that he just felt he was at a point in his career where he wanted to move. And again, he wanted to move to a Premier League club. And again, at that point, business steps in, and I have to do what I can to protect the club.
So Bobby was a 20-plus goal scorer. Have you replaced Bobby enough, do you think?
We've bought in Marley Watkins, we've bought in Andy Weimann, we've got Nicholas Eliasson emerging. I think this is a big season for Famara. We're all frustrated and disappointed that he misses that first 6-game block. But remember, Famara missed a big chunk of last season and still scored a lot of goals. So yeah, I think the goals will come from more ranging positions, but I genuinely think the squad is solid and competitive.
Obviously the window is shut now and we've got our signings. When you hear names bandied around, some way off the mark, does it make you laugh? Does it make you cry? Does it frustrate you in your dealings with other clubs? So there's a lot of speculation, a lot of rumours, a lot of kind of media chat.
Yeah, I must admit, it sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's laughable, and sometimes it just doesn't help. Because I think one of the frustrations that I've got is when you're in the middle of a transfer window, the one thing you want to do is communicate to the supporters. And supporters will wonder, well, why hasn't Mark spoken during the transfer window? And the reason for that is really simple. If I come out and tell the truth in the middle of a window, I'll compromise us. We may lose the player. It will be commercially a disadvantage to us. So sometimes I'm better not saying anything and just getting on with our business.
New role for yourself on the EFL board. What does that mean for Bristol City?
Probably a few more grey hairs for me. No, it was an interesting one. I've been in the industry just over 30 years this year, and I was approached by probably 2 or 3 championship CEOs and owners to say, look, we need someone who's been in this industry a while, understands it, and will sit on the board and represent the championship clubs. Would you do it? And I wasn't sure. So I spoke to Steve Lansdowne and to Keith Dorr and to Doug Harmon, and all 3 said, you've got to do it. You need to do this, you have to do this. It's good for Bristol City Football Club. It puts us at the top table. It gives us a voice at the top table. So when I was then elected by all of the championship clubs to do that, I was absolutely delighted. Attended my first meeting a week ago, which was interesting. It'll be a learning curve, but it will certainly give Bristol City a voice at the top table of Football League football. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Great atmosphere here last Saturday for Nottingham Forest, and a few developments at the stadium during the summer.
Yeah, been a busy summer off the pitch. As I said previously, there's an army of people that work tirelessly behind the scenes at this football club, particularly those in Ashton Gate, led by Mark Kelly, who have liaised with Matt Parsons, who we've brought in as our supporter liaison officer, who is talking consistently to supporter groups to ensure that we're consistently tweaking and turning and making improvements within the stadium. So there's a team that sits behind the team, that sits behind the team, that sits behind the team. And whether that's Dan Sparks and the ground staff, who've prepared a fantastic pitch here at Ashton Gate, and at Filton for the 18s, and at Phelan for the first team, whether it's the ticket office staff, whether it's the retail staff, they've all worked tirelessly behind the scenes in what was generating a fantastic atmosphere on Saturday. As ever, the supporters here are fantastic, and I think that was summed up in Weimann's, 4th minute goal, when the place erupts. You just can't buy that moment. But there's a lot of people who sit behind the scenes, as I keep saying, that help deliver that. And whether that be staff, players, management, board, they are continually working to improve this football club. I'd like to thank my board, who have been fantastic with me over the summer. have had to put up with me, my ups and my downs during a difficult transfer window, but they've all been supportive. Keith Daw, John Lansdowne, Doug Harmon have been fantastic as ever. And you know, that's backed up by the Lansdowne family in Steve and Maggie, who give us a solid platform to work from. We are very fortunate at this football club. If you look at the industry as a whole, there are some interesting ownership groups around, but we don't have erratic behaviour. We have a solid family, Bristolian family, who support us in building sustainable success here. And from everybody in the football club, I can only say thank you to the Lansdownes and thank you to my board, who again have been fantastically supportive.